Welcome back again to Joe Stunner Boxing, and it's another dinner time video. How you doing? This time we have les sandwiches de fromage, cheese sandwiches. We've got some fruit. I like fruit. And I thought I'd also have some Coke, but first I'll drink this. Do you see what I did there? It's good. All right, enough of that. Let's talk some boxing. Dereck Chisora and Joseph Parker have their rematch this weekend. You've probably seen the first fight. When this was first announced, my reaction was kind of, I'm not that fussed. I thought the first fight was okay, but it didn't exactly enthrall. It was okay. It threatened to enthrall because in the opening seconds, of course, Parker was on the floor. And Chisora, could he be on the way to finally achieving a big win over a top 8 opponent? But it didn't work out like that. Because Dereck threw everything at Parker. First 6 rounds. He probably won that. If it was a 6 round, he'd have probably won. Unfortunately for him, it was a 12 round. Was it a 12 rounder or a 10 rounder? I think it was 12, right? 12. And the second half of the fight, Joseph took over. And I think when I was watching it, I scored it 114, 130, which was 7 rounds to 5. He only won by a point because of the 10-8 in the first round against him. But I thought Parker won it. If you said to me 115, 112 to Chisora, I wouldn't have a problem with that. You know, it was close. So, what was interesting about the first fight, for me anyway, was that Chisora, rather inexplicably, when you consider his style, had Buddy McGirt in his corner. I thought it was a strange meeting of very dissimilar minds. I didn't really understand that pairing. But sure enough, it didn't last. I can't say I'm that surprised. For the rematch, Chisora has Dave Colville in his corner. In the other corner, Parker was making, well, he was having the first fight with his new trainer, Andy Lee. Parker is very close to the Fury camp. He likes them as people. He speaks very highly of Tyson. Andy Lee is Tyson's cousin. Andy Lee strikes me as being, he's a very good commentator. I really like his commentary. But he strikes me as being someone who, having worked with Emmanuel Stewart for many years, to the point where he was actually living in Stewart's house for quite a while. And then when Stewart passed away, Andy worked with Adam Booth, 2 very cerebral-minded trainers. So the knowledge that Lee has, I think, is really quite invaluable. And I think he'll go on to be a very established trainer. With the first fight with Parker, I think they only had 6 weeks. He mentioned it in an interview, I think it was 6 weeks, which is not nearly enough time to gel. So there are basic things that could be sort of honed, if you like, in such a short space of time. But no real work could be done in 6 weeks. It's not long enough. And also there couldn't be a psychological pairing of the two. If that takes time, the mental side of it. What are Joseph's weaknesses? What buttons can be pushed psychologically that will get Joseph to use his undoubted talents, which in the past he hasn't always done. Hasn't always done that. I did a video not so long ago about how frustrating Joseph Parker can be, and he can be very frustrating because he's not a massive heavyweight, but he's big. Got lots of very evident skills, but unfortunately doesn't always use them. What buttons psychologically can Andy Lee press to get him to use those? Will he use them against Chisora? And I think the pre-fight interviews between both Parker and Lee have been quite interesting, because Parker says he's looking for a knockout. Lee wasn't sure whether Parker had won the first fight, but looked at it and said he thought he edged it, but he didn't like the way in which he'd won, the manner in which he'd won. And I took that to mean that he felt Parker wasn't fighting to his strengths. You know what I mean? So I'm very interested to see what type of Joseph Parker turns up now they've had many months to work on things, mentally and physically. For Dereck Chisora, with 11 losses, well, he really is the quintessential gatekeeper, isn't he? His resume is a who's who of who. Brilliant resume, but he hasn't won many big fights. He has been robbed in a few. No one will ever tell me that Robert Helenius beat Dereck Chisora. He didn't. Then there's close ones, like the first Parker fight, which was could have gone either way. For the most part, I would say out of 11 losses, 6 or 7 are bona fide losses. Dereck is a very good fighter, but not a great one. Even though he's tough, even though he's a warrior, he brings war to the table every time. That's why he called himself War. But he doesn't have the repertoire of a Joseph Parker. So in the past, you've got one guy, you could argue, who sort of overachieves or maximises his ability, and even in fights he has lost, has for periods looked very good, like against Parker, or even Usyk. Early on, Dereck looked all right. The first 3 rounds, he looked fine against Usyk. And you've got another guy who has all the tools but hasn't always used them, which is Parker. So, as with many fights that I sort of roll my eyes at when they're made, and I think, oh, I don't really like that one, not that bothered. The more I think of it, the more interesting I think it is. Well, it could be. On the other hand, it could be boring as hell. You just don't know, do you? So, prediction. I am going to pick Parker to win on points again, but without any controversy. I don't think there'll be enough room for people to say, I think Dereck won that. I think Parker will win 116, 112, 117, 111, something like that. I think he'll start faster. He'll find his range, his composure more. He looked shaken in the first couple of rounds, 2, 3, 4 rounds against the first fight against Dereck. And it took him time to find a distance, to find a rhythm, to find just to find what punches to use. He looked quite sort of like he was reacting to what Dereck was doing rather than imposing his own game plan or technique onto Dereck. I don't think that will happen this time. I think we'll start early. And from the word go, you'll see him boxing, letting punches go, hurtful punches as well as don't hit me punches. I think he'll catch Dereck coming in. Dereck might have his little spots where he's okay, where he does some damage, or threatens to do some damage. But for the most part, I see Parker comfortably outboxing Dereck. Over 12. Parker's got a pretty good engine, over 12, so I don't think that'll be a problem, stamina-wise. Some people have said to me they think Parker will stop Dereck late. It's possible, yeah. I didn't dismiss that out of hand, but I'm going to pick a sort of a conservative, sort of rather reserved prediction of Parker to win a unanimous, comfortable decision. Open brackets, maybe a late stoppage, close brackets. And if Dereck loses this, where does he go from here? He can get more work because he's a good trial horse, a good gatekeeper. But he's got to win this to keep any sort of serious money coming in, because that's what he cares about, is money. He's not interested in world titles. So, I don't know. I think we're talking, you know, maybe Dereck's last dance. He's been a good warrior though. And for Parker, yeah, maybe a really convincing win would open a few doors for world title fights. He's underachieved in the past. It's now time to step up to the plate and achieve, and to be exciting. I hope Andy Lee's had that positive effect on him. Anyway, that's my spiel. That's my take on it. What do you think? Leave your comments below. And if you could support this channel by subscribing, that would be a massive help. Hit that little subscribe button for me. Maybe like the video as well. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. As always, I will speak to you soon. You take care of yourselves.